How you guys doing? Can everyone hear me? Everything good? That game was absolutely crazy. There was a moment there where it really felt like this was going to be absolutely over and the Raptors come back from the dead. That was, you know, I understand that there's a segment of this fan base that's actively rooting for us to lose every single game, and I understand that there's a segment that is just hoping for competitive losses. Maybe there's some of you, some segment of this fan base that's still holding out hope for a resurrection. I think we all win when the Raptors play like this. The defense, which had been absolutely terrible for the last, I would say, week, really showed up tonight. When's the last time you saw that from the Raptors? It was a great win. General context notwithstanding, it was a great win. Huge game from a lot of key players. Let's start. Let's start with Fred VanVleet, right? Just let's look at the box score there. I think that he had a pretty damn good game. Not a lot of pressing, a lot of shots in motion. Sorry about that. That's the team stats, but we will look at that in a minute. Um, Here we go. Yeah, I mean, you can't complain about this. 33 points on 23 shots. You know, he didn't dominate possessions as much tonight. His usage rate was really high, but I think he made the most of it. 8 assists. Pascal Siakam, despite what the box score says there, he's probably, to me, the least impressive starter offensively tonight. Just a very high load, not a lot done with it. A lot of shots out of control. I think the defense really honed in on him, and good on him for playmaking out of those positions, especially late. Found OG open for that wide open three off the Barnes initiation. I really like that. Um, Gary Trent Jr. really cooled off later. Didn't didn't take anything out of rhythm. I really like the fact that he's expanding his catch and shoot game a lot. Um, and OG Anunoby, started out with, man, it was bad, right? And then he hits those two clutch threes late. His defense was, of course, incredible. I think defense for the most part tonight for the entire Raptors front court, especially Scottie, OG, and Siakam, specifically the latter two, was very commendable. And of course Scottie Barnes, right? 15 points in fourth quarter and overtime. 26 points, his third straight game, over 20 points. I just really liked what I saw from him. I think, for the most part, they kept the front court. Julius Randle with just 21 points. I mean, 21 points, 15 rebounds. The guy's a load in there, right? You're putting up Chris Boucher, who's routinely giving up like 40, 50 pounds. Your entire front court is undersized. Mitchell Robinson, of course. And, in terms of team stats, right, we can look at that, of course, as well. The Raptors, for the first time in what feels like a long time, they take fewer shots than their opponent. They shoot worse than their opponent. Neither team shot the ball exceptionally well. The Raptors once again find themselves at 29% from three, but the Knicks also shot 29% from three, right? The Raptors got to the line more, and frankly, that was the game. And, to that, we have to say Scottie Barnes, 13 attempts. He's been getting to the line a lot more. He's been a lot more aggressive going to the basket, and I just really like the game that he put together for himself. So for this show, we're going to start experimenting with what I would like to call a new format. It's not wholly new to those of you who've gotten used to this format, but I do want to tighten some things up. Number one, I'd like to try to limit calls to 4 to 5 minutes unless there's something exceptionally, relevant to be talked about. Number one. Number two, I would like to go into a certain format where I talk about players of the game. Haven't always had that, format where I sort of broke down elements of the game first. And third, I do want to implement some sort of point towards the middle, which will become a recurring theme throughout these post games. Maybe I'll talk about zone defense or a particular analytic. And so I want to create that slightly more structured environment where these post games can be hopefully 90 minutes so that people can actually watch them the next day. I know myself that there are content creators that I love, and 4 hour live streams the next day, especially if I miss them live, are really intimidating. So we're going to try to keep it between 90 minutes and maximum 2 hours. All right. So with that said, what did I want to talk about today towards the middle of the show? Well, there's two things I really want to talk about. Three things I want to talk about towards the middle of the show. Number one is something exciting coming up for Pensari basketball, specifically two videos that we have scheduled, planned over the next week that I think are really exceptional. Number two, I want to talk about Scottie in the zone. People have been talking about this for a while. How do you attack zones? And I thought this would be a really cool way to just intro the topic. The third thing I want to do is I want to talk about, I want to play a brief tribute to Martin Luther King. It's less than a minute, guys, and just make sure that we don't go through today without remembering what he meant. And he's meant a lot to me in my life. I obviously grew up in the United States. He was a big, I don't know, hero of mine growing up. And, just to have a moment to remember him would be really great. We have three callers already lined up. We have Tonius, NY4Raps, and FA. To anyone who is wondering about how to call in, I'm going to post a link in the comments here. And here we go. There you go. And it's also in the description if you miss it in the comments. So first up, we got Tonius. Tonius, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? Is the mic
Good.
okay? Oh, my mic's fine this time. Thank goodness.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So first time caller here. I just picked up on your show after all that VanVleet media. So it's a good thing you're getting it into attention. But for tonight, I think we should give Fred VanVleet his props. He really carried us through this game, especially the fourth quarter.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Well, I think all of us, we wanted to tank, but I really believe the Knicks just nick themselves to allow us to get the win. And I do love making the Knicks fans angry because it's just hilarious. But I think doing it to Philly is much better.
And yeah, I mean, I think Fred had probably his best game in a month, right? If not months.
Rare. It's been rare.
And it was great. There was a lot of talk early in the game about, maybe he wouldn't play because of his back, and I think the pressure was sort of off for him, right? And that's great because he played a lot more free today. There was a lot more freedom to him. There was a lot less pressing. Late in the game, what I really appreciated about Fred VanVleet was that he got off the ball and he allowed Scottie to initiate instead of doing his usual thing, which is, to sort of freeze Scottie out of the offense and then kind of go one-on-one himself. Honestly, I mean, this is what we've been calling for all year, which is put the ball in a more gifted playmaker's hand down the stretch and feed off of that action. And, I sort of disagree that he carried us in the fourth. I don't think that, I don't know if you meant that literally, but I don't agree with that. I know that was something that Jack Armstrong said during the thing. And I was just like, yikes. No, he didn't. But he was good. Like, he was really good. This is the best version of what this can be. And we'll get into it at some point, hopefully, if a caller wants to talk about Fred VanVleet's value around the league and what he could mean to other teams. I think he does a lot of really interesting stuff on the court that could help, a winning team. What did you think of Scottie's performance tonight?
Oh my God. The guy was literally an AWAC system. He knew where everybody was. He just caught it into the post. Drew the double team as usual, and he had those hands that can just palm the ball like a tennis ball, and he just knew where he knew where the cutters are, and he knew where to toss the ball. So that was amazing. Scottie really carried the game. I know he did, and I'm sure he might have missed that free throw on purpose, just so he can showboat in the Garden in overtime to show us what he's got. I'm just kidding, you know that.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, well, I mean, I think he had a really good game. He started out and he got that sort of shoulder bumped, and then he started out the game 1 for 4 from the free throw line. And I have a ritual. It's a really strange ritual, but I do this every single time Scottie is at the line, and that's for him to make it. And I got to tell you that my record doing this when he's at the line is 62 for 62. He's never missed.
Mm.
And I just went like this the rest of the game through because I just wanted him to have a big night. OG had a really big night at Madison Square Garden last year. He had 35 points.
Yeah.
Pascal had a big one earlier. Every young player who's ever grown up dreaming of hoops, has dreamt of having a really big night at LA and at New York. Scottie had his big night at Staples or whatever they call it now. I refuse to I refuse to rename it now. Last year, he put up a career high, 17 boards, and he had I think 31 to 33 points against LeBron. And he had his Garden moment tonight. So I'm very happy for him, and he got the win. Also happy for him.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah. How'd you feel when Fred made that little blunder at the end? That almost that was pretty questionable.
You know what? Blunders happen. I just respect the fact that he played the right way tonight for the most part. I think there was minimal chucking. There was minimal pressing. There was a willingness to get off the ball. There was a willingness to defer. I liked it. I can't complain about anything Fred VanVleet did tonight offensively. Defensively, completely different story. A lot of issues, but we won't get into that. Keep it positive. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I think he played well. All right. Thanks a lot, Tony.
No
really appreciate it.
Yeah, you have a good
Cheers. One. Okay. Next up, we got NY4 Raps, and we got FA. I got to tell you, man, NY4 Raps, I was feeling bad for you because you specifically said you wanted them to lose this game. And
yeah.
Yeah, it got to the point where you just want to win the game because Scottie's performance, right? Even though I'm still in the tank mode, but sometimes you just kind of see where this team can be better. They cannot tank, period. They're too good to tank. For them to tank, they need to make some trades.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that this is going to change their thinking. Necessarily. Otto Porter was a really are one of you having a major sound that's coming from your end? It's very distracting.
No.
Is there something? Anyways, yeah, I'm just hearing a hum. It's very loud, but it's maybe just I do have very good headphones, so maybe I'm hearing something.
I'm hearing the hum too. I muted my mic for a second. I could still hear it, so it's not coming from my end.
Yeah, it's NY4 Raps. It's from your end.
Not from my end.
You're sure?
It's on mute. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So anyways, yeah, I think it's just good.
Where do we go from here?
I mean, you take it for what it is, right? Because Otto Porter was going to be a really big part of what you were doing this year, and he's out, right? And he was so important, so important. I know when they signed him this offseason that he was going to be a 25-minute per game guy and probably an occasional closer in the playoffs. So him going out changes so much. But Precious Achiuwa coming back also changed a lot, right? Yeah. He is looking so good. I was very dangerously close to making him one of my players of the game, 3 players of the game today, because he provided a lot, and it's something that when he wasn't there, you really felt that missing, right? And, kudos to Nick Nurse at the end when Siakam fouled out to go back to Precious Achiuwa. I think he does a lot of interesting things on the court.
Going back to Fred VanVleet, he only started playing better in the fourth quarter, actually 2 minutes towards the end of the fourth quarter. Remember when we were playing big, that's when we were doing very well. When VanVleet came in and we started losing.
No, that's fair. He definitely turned this performance around for himself. There was a part of the game earlier where literally every time he would come in, the lead would close, right?
Yes.
But that's partially because of defense.
I'm not going to be negative on Fred VanVleet today because I want his trade level to stay up. So let's talk about that player.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think a lot of this has to do with defense. Right? We're going to get into it when we talk about the zone defense because a lot of teams, they don't specifically play zone or man. They play a combination. It's kind of like a hybrid defense. And I just wanted to talk about that at some point in this episode about how longer defenders help help make zone defenses really great. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I think that Fred is, I was listening to a Thinking Basketball podcast today, and they were talking about various players throughout history who lost the step. I think they talked about Aaron Brooks, right? They talked about Brandon Jennings. They talked about Allen Iverson. They talked about a lot of these undersized guards. And they said that the gap between, losing a step and losing half a step is basically like 15th best player in the league right to 250th best player in the league. It falls off that fast. Because when you don't have height, like if we put Tim Duncan back in the NBA right now, granted, I think he's 43 right now. If we put him back in the NBA right now, he could still play. He could still play probably like 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes. He might even be one of the 150 best players in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
I think you could probably do that with Dirk as
He'll
well.
still give us some rebounds, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he can just touch the rim, right? I mean, like, he's a big dude, and I think that was kind of the case with Hakeem, later in his career as well. You saw it, like he could still start, and he was like 37, 38 years old. He couldn't play very long minutes. He got injured a lot, but if he wanted to dial it up for 3-4 possessions, he was still Hakeem Olajuwon. That advantage doesn't exist with smaller players. So I think that sort of becomes the problem that, if he has lost a step, if it's not just the back, if it's legitimately just, players do slow down from 22 to 28. There is a slowdown. He wasn't that bursty to begin with, but whatever little burst he had and all the intelligence he had, so his days as a starting guard may be over. They may very well be over, but I think that he can still provide a tremendous value to a team looking to shore up their second unit, or looking for him to be like a fifth option in a starting lineup with a lot of stars. So I'm going
to ask you to make a prediction. Do you think VanVleet is going to be a Toronto Raptors player February 10th?
No, I don't. But Vegas does. Vegas very much thinks that it's OG and Gary who are on their way out, but I don't think so. So yeah, so that's sort of my prediction. Anyways, any final takeaways, man?
Overall, great game. Great coaching skills today. I mean,
and I think
again, there's no way forward with VanVleet in the team.
But the good news is that I like the progression of Scottie Barnes, right? Not just jacking up shots, but the way he plays inside. Like, if you look at his free throw, I think the month of October was 2 free throws a game, then declined in November to the 1.5, then December it got up to 3. But in January, it's like 6.75. So you can see the progression showing that.
We released that video at exactly the right time. We timed the bottom, and then we released it so that he would start playing exceedingly well the next day. This is just, it's interesting. He didn't even have that great a game. That's the crazy part. He's the player of the game, and he didn't even have that great a game. There were so many times
when they run the plays through him, right? How it opens the floor for everybody,
for everyone. And did you see the pass from the other side to? Oh, I think it was to OG. I don't even know how he did that.
Yeah, honestly, a little bit of a risky pass, but it's like really impressive that he saw it. That was, I think, the most incredible part of it. 1, how fast he saw it. 2, where he saw it, like right through the defense's hands and right into OG's shooting pocket. My God, I'm obsessed with Nikola Jokic, what he's doing in the NBA, and what I'm seeing in Scottie Barnes is like a 6'8", 6'9" Jokic clone.
Yes.
With like actual athleticism and burst. I'm just like, my God, when Brian said this is a player we haven't seen before, he might actually be right. There's so many things that he can do, and I think in a correct offense, like you could unlock this guy for 25, 10, and 10 every night. Like there's so much.
He needs shooters around him. Once you have shooters around him, it's gonna explode. Because
that's one of the reasons why I still want them to keep OG.
Maybe too smart for his age.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Like, I mean, when you constantly have motion within the offense, you expose more gaps in the defense, right? That's the whole point. And if you have a gifted passer, especially a passer who can actually be a remotely competent threat to score, then that passer can unlock all sorts of advantages that that a non-gifted passer can't. I mean, what we're seeing with Sacramento with Domantas Sabonis, what we're seeing in Indiana with Tyrese Halliburton, what we're seeing in Dallas with Luka Doncic. Gifted passers are so incredible. And I know that, to the casual fan out there, and this is not shade on casual fans, sometimes you will see a Scottie Barnes line that looks like 11 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, and you're going to be like, ugh. what is he? You know, but you got to understand, like, players have to make shots. And sometimes, if you unlock, like, you got to look at the quality of looks that he's generating. That look to OG, I mean, the confidence to find him when he had missed, I think he was 0 for 5 from 3 at that point, or 0 for 6. Like, he'd missed every shot till that point. But we know OG doesn't shoot to miss, So it's just like, it's just so crazy to me that he found him there. And then, that kind of gets him going. And even that play where Scottie backs down from the left side of the floor, finds Siakam open for 3, Siakam goes in, and then finds OG. That's a ping, ping, ping play. But it starts with Barnes shifting, passing at the exact right time, and then basically Siakam making the correct read and to pass to OG in the corner. But that corner is open for a reason, because the second defender collapsed, gravitated towards Scottie. And it's just, if you make those bang, bang reads, and if players don't hold the ball, which we're going to get into with the zone defense stuff later, that's when you can actually unlock a playmaker like Scottie. Anyways, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Right.
A win for the Raptors, a loss for the tank, but nevertheless, carrying on.
All right.
Cheers. Okay, we have Raptors 902. We have Mo. We have Tamberlin. We're gonna go to Tamberlin. Tamberlin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm great.
Scottie Barnes was so good today.
Yeah, he was.
So you stole my thunder there, the Jokic-esque pass to OG across court. But how about early in the game when he made, I think it was 2 or 3 offensive rebounds on one play and kept drilling guys in their shooting pockets and finally tapped the ball to Pascal, who gave it to Fred. It was just, he was so incredible.
He did so many small things that help you win a basketball game.
Look at the offensive rebounds. He had almost half of our offensive rebounds.
Yeah, he was impressive.
I was talking to a friend during the game who writes for OKC, and we were talking about the game that OKC had against the Nets and how great Josh and Shea have been. And he was watching the game with me while it was going on, and I was like, "Are you watching this with Scottie?" Because Scottie just came out, and yes, Fred had a good game. Thank you. Up your trade value. Thank you very much. And my first thought was, imagine if he had approached the games from the start of the season playing with Scottie the way he played with him today, how different the season might have been. But
not only for him, not only for Scottie, but also for the Raptors. Do you mind responding to this comment on the screen? I'm very curious what you think of it. Barnes ain't better at passing than Pascal. Why he averaged 1.6 less assists and also has less tonight.
Well, first of all, Brian, part of it's luck because sometimes guys hit shots and sometimes they don't. But I'll ask you to watch the next game and watch for the players that are receiving the passes from Scottie, receive them. They receive them what they call in the pocket. When you watched Pascal and Fred, Pascal's pretty good at it. I'll give him that. But he doesn't make the quick. He made a couple today, like the pass to OG, the second 3 that OG hit after Scottie hit him was a good pass from Pascal. But he doesn't always make the reads as quickly as Scottie does. But watch where Scottie passes the ball. Watch where the people receiving it get the ball. Like there was a play. It was to Precious a couple of games ago where Scottie threw the ball and it was a good foot to the left of Precious, just outside the paint. It was like we're talking the narrowest of margins that pass could be delivered, and it kept the ball away from the defender and allowed Precious to grab it and turn inside and dunk it. It's his IQ for when he's passing it, how quickly he's passing it, and where it's received, and then compare that to what Pascal and Fred do. Fred will throw a lot of shots low. The guys, watch how many times guys have to lean over to get the ball when they receive it from Fred.
Yep. No, I agree. And like the last 2 games, I would actually say prior to the end of this game, Scottie's passing hasn't been quite as great as it was. I think one of his best passing games, and Leo and I are going to do a film breakdown of it tomorrow, was Charlotte, the second game against Charlotte. That
Mhm.
game was like a passing masterclass. Like he just dialed in and he was like, I'm going to be the best passer in the world today. And he just did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, to sort of piggyback on what Tamberlin said there, Scotty's playmaking is absolutely gifted. It's like on a completely different tier. It's like we're talking like night. I know that the numbers don't back it up right now, but because of opportunity, role, usage, etc. But if put in a position to actually, be the lead playmaker for a team, I think he'd be like a 97th or 98th percentile, playmaker in the league. Like he's gifted, and that's 21. And the other thing that, I mean, we're going to get into a little bit later, but I messaged my friend, I don't know, Tamberlin, did you see that whole neuroscience thing that I went on? No?
I wasn't watching Twitter. Was it on
Yeah,
Twitter?
it wasn't on Twitter, it was on Instagram. And basically, I just
Oh,
became suddenly fixated at the concept of what is happening in the brain of a gifted passer, right? Like, how do they see things that other people don't? And so I decided to message my friend Catherine, who's like she was on the youth council for Justin Trudeau. She's like really gifted. She's a neuroscientist, and I was like, "Would you like to have a 1 hour discussion about basketball and neuroscience and how like the brain works in high pressure situations and how certain guys can map this shit out?" And she said, "Totally my jam." Turns out we've known each
wicked.
other for 10 years. Never knew she was a basketball fan. So that
Come
conversation is definitely going to
on.
come up at some point. Um, you know,
Wicked.
yeah, no,
Wicked.
I'm super just, I'm just super curious. And like so much of it has to do with hand-eye coordination, foot-hand coordination. There's so much of it. And, like I bet so much of
And
Pascal
processing.
processing, but, like also like the experience, like Pascal played soccer, and
Yeah,
soccer playmaking does correlate very well to hand-foot coordination, which probably explains his
absolutely.
exceptional footwork, but it also
Same with
coordinates.
Coloco.
Yeah, exactly. Koloko, Siakam, like all these guys. So like, if you're a young hooper out there,
Juan was the one that started it.
yeah, exactly. I think it was handball with him or volleyball. Like I know there was like other sports involved, and it's like you never know like how different sports give you like competitive advantages. Allen Iverson with football, Jalen Suggs with
Yeah,
football, um,
yeah.
Danny Ainge with baseball, right? Like Michael
Mhm.
Jordan with baseball, right? Like the hand-eye
Makes
coordination
sense.
that's required to hit a ball coming at that speed. It's incredible how much that can like, and like there's all that P3 testing and all that stuff that Steph Curry does with the lights. I don't know if you've ever seen him doing it, but like he has the dribble and then they have the light activated. And it's so like, weirdly enough, I was trying to understand like where Scottie Barnes like hand-eye coordination comes from because he's obviously very gifted in this.
Did
And
he
then
play in a sport?
he did play football growing up. That was
Okay.
definitely in his wheelhouse. He was very good. He actually, I think he started out with football in grade 6, grade 7, and then he transferred. I mean, he was playing both. But
Mhm.
I think one of the most interesting things that I remember hearing is that video games, which Scotty's obviously obsessed with video games. He's always been
Right.
obsessed with video games. He was like always on his video games in like high school. Video games are great for hand-eye coordination.
Yeah.
So yeah, to all those
Did
people
you?
complaining about all that Twitch stuff, that's just basketball training, guys.
Yeah, but I think they're probably well for the ones that were around for when Terrence Ross was with the team. He had a habit of staying up till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning playing videos, which is why they said that he always looked so tired. So it depends on when you play them, I guess. I'd love to know which sport, like play people that play hockey. They've always said that lacrosse is like a really good summer sport for them for the hand-eye coordination. I wonder what the best one is. I wonder if it is soccer because it does make sense just given how many Europeans are so fundamentally good with their footwork, you know?
Hmm.
But
Absolutely.
then again, they called it almost every player will say that DeRozan has the best footwork in the business. They used to say it was Kobe. But DeRozan is gifted with his footwork,
He
definitely.
is. He is definitely
And
for sure.
I don't recall if Demar played another sport or not.
I don't either, but I think I honestly there's so much about like foot force, and we're gonna get into that at some point in the neuroscience thing. But like how much force you exert on the ground makes versus how light you are on your feet. I
Uh-huh.
think Demar is like very methodical because he's obviously a workhorse and he's a gym rat like he's always been. So he'll practice the same move like a million times, and then the neural pathways to that move become so automatic. So I think with Demar, it's less of a gift and more of a nurtured, talent. But the gift to me is like Jokic, like his twinkle toe footwork for a guy that big, how he's able to sort of just move, I think is incredible. Like, and how he's able to survey the floor. But anyways, any final takeaways on this game?
Just someone had mentioned in the stream. I'm not in there right now. I'm in the back room about Scottie's defense, but I wanted to point out that Scottie did so much today. He wasn't just like what was Brunson's he wasn't really guarding the main on Brunson. He was the help defender on Brunson. He did a lot of guarding on Randall, and Randall was 7 for 20. So
Yeah,
he wasn't he wasn't great.
Yeah, he guarded Randall. He guarded, he guarded RJ sometimes. I mean, he did.
Yeah,
He did give that.
He was a help defender on a lot of guys.
Yeah,
He was boxing out. He
yeah.
created a lot of turnovers today.
Oh,
Um, I,
incredible.
and what I really loved is he was getting in faces of the refs and getting in faces of the Knicks, which was a lot of fun. I really felt like there was a bit of swag coming today. I loved Precious's game today.
Did you see him put? Did you see him like wave his finger at? I don't remember who it was. Was it a quick? Was it a quickly or
Grimes.
Grimes? Yeah,
Yeah,
because when Grimes
yeah.
kind of got into it, Pascal Siakam, he just kind of gave him like a nice look. You know what? I watched Scottie, like, to those of you who know this channel, I've watched Scottie for like 6 years, 5 years now, like 5 years. This is going back 5 years. This is Scottie Barnes. Like this,
Yeah.
this like don't
Yeah.
don't poke the bear kind of attitude. This
It was the
swagger.
most Scotty-esque game. Yeah,
This is like,
absolutely.
yeah, it's so him, and like all the hustle. Like, this is really who he was in EYBL. This is exactly who
Um,
he was.
and also, did you notice when he dunked in the first half, did the spin move around and the whole bench stood up? It was Fred's hand that Fred reached out and tapped his hand.
Hmm.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Like there was a lot more interaction between the pair of them today. That was
Yeah, I mean, they seem to have worked out something, and good for them. Absolutely. Um,
so Scotty said you is not him, supposedly. That's what he said to Grimes.
good for him. Because
Yeah.
Knicks fans may be disappointed to hear that, but Quentin Grimes is not him. All right, Tamberlin, thanks so much for calling
Okay.
in. Really appreciate it.
Happy
Cheers.
I don't know if you say happy Martin Luther King Day, but let's all appreciate the day. And thanks, Rob. Have a good day.
My pleasure. Okay, on that note, we have 3 callers lined up. We have Hefe, Mo, and Raptors 902. If you don't mind, guys, I just want to take 45 seconds on that note to just take a moment to appreciate Dr. Martin Luther King. Hope thank you for giving me, a minute of your time for that. And I hope that we can all reflect on, it's not just about school segregation. It's not just about racial segregation. It's not just about discrimination. It's about doing the right thing, right? As human beings. I don't want to get too far into this because I could probably go on to this about for 5 hours, but, doing the right thing when it's not the convenient thing to do, being of service. Something that Martin Luther King talked about a lot was being of service to your community, being of service to your common man. Practicing forgiveness is a huge thing, and moving with love. We can go over some quotes later if you guys are interested, but yeah. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Raptors 902 and then Mo. Raptors 902, what up? Hello? Hello. Okay, Raptors 9-2. We're gonna come back to you, Coach Mo. What's up? Hello.
Yeah.
Hey Mo, what's up?
Oh, hold on one second. I'll call you back. Okay. Hey, what's up?
What's going on, man?
You know what's actually funny? I was on the phone with my friend about the coaching league we're in and how it's going to grow, and there might be funding from MLSE. So I was just talking about that. But
That's amazing. Congratulations.
anyways, it took a while, but they're finally using Scottie Barnes as somewhat of a hub in the half court. And that's all a lot of us have been asking for. Let him touch it in the mid post, and just great things would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Just great things
I
would
agree.
happen. And it's like, and someone made a comment about, oh, Pascal had more assists, so how is he a better passer? Scotty makes quick decisions and gets people in positions where they have an advantage, whether it's a shot. You saw OG drive. You
Yep.
saw Achua get a drive by. Like, he has defenders closing out because he's making quick reads, and then we get action off that. And when you play like that, you're not going to get the assist because you got the hockey assist or the pass that led to the pass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of those Russell Westbrook assists.
So you're a coach, and let's say you see a zone defense. Can you let's talk this out, because I think you would be a great person to sort of ping pong this with. How would you, as an offensive coach, attack a team that is aggressively going into, like, or continuously going to go zone 2-3, 3-2, 1-2-2, whatever you want to call it, or 2-2-1-2? Like, how are you attacking these various zone defenses, and like, what tactic are you employing? What type of players do you want to have on the court? What type of players are you subbing in? Are you putting in corner shooters? Like, just talk me through it.
I think you just need the easiest way is to have someone like Scottie Barnes or even Thaddeus Young to catch the ball in the middle around the free throw line or closer,
High
and
post,
then
yep.
and it just collapses. The whole thing just collapses.
Agree.
As soon as you do that, it's a wrap. And I keep when my players would get zone, I just tell them to get the ball in the middle. Someone just stand in the middle because no one is designated dead center to defend it, and then there's confusion and the whole thing, and then crash the offensive glass.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And, you know, what Scottie's doing right now is making him a zone buster, because in a lot of ways, you know, there's pros and cons with Scottie, right? Like, if you put him in the corner as a shooter, which is what was happening a lot earlier in the year, he has no value or very little value, right? He cannot be there. Stationary, he cannot be there. Movement, maybe he might sort of track someone with him, or maybe someone might follow him out or react to him. But just him parked out in the corner, he is nowhere near the shooter that he needs to be in order to be that. We're going to get into a shot chart at some point. There is a place on the 3-point line, ironically, that he's shooting about 48% from now. But apart from that specific spot on the court, as a 3-point shooter, he doesn't have enough gravity to really collapse the zone or to bother the zone. And then it's just, all it does is it allows, if he's on the weak side, it allows the zone to sort of aggressively focus itself on the strong side, and it makes, you know, life hell for his teammates. But as you said, if he catches the ball in the high post, especially if it's a reversal, if he can quickly reverse it, or if he can just, you know, suck in a second defender on a soft post up and then reverse it, like, he is just constantly building gravity as he does these things. You know, I almost think of him like I think an interesting way to sort of see this is to look at every offensive player as some shade of green, right? Like light green all the way to the darkest green possible. And the darkest green possible is like Steph Curry open for three. That's like the most gravity. Or Shaq one-on-one in the post in 2001. Or Kevin Durant open for a mid-range jumper. Like, I think like these guys catching that spot is like dark red-green. Defense has to aggressively collapse, right? And then there's like a very light green to almost an opaque, you know, zero gravity. And I think like what Scottie does exceptionally well is he either creates gravity through movement, through off-ball movement, cutting behind the defense, crashing the glass, etc. He's disrupting the defense, or he is consistently finding the guy who has the gravitational pull in the right place. Like OG corner 3 wide open, that is a bucket. Like I don't care if he's 0 for 10 at that point. He made the right read there. Precious Achiuwa, top, maybe not necessarily the same, situation. But what I think is the difference between Scottie's passes and Pascal's passes and Fred's passes is that there's such a calculation to his passes.
Yeah. I don't think you can play through Pascal in the post as efficiently and as consistently. Because
Agreed.
Barnes, they have to send help because he will just overpower the guy guarding him. If they're like Barnes has been in double figures in the free throw line the last couple games.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not an accident. They have to foul him. It's like when LeBron has the ball in the post, it's like you foul him or he will overwhelm you physically. That's your only, like, for example, I love Drew Holiday. I think he's the best perimeter defender in the league.
Agreed.
There was a game he was guarding, and he's strong. There was a game he was guarding LeBron James in the post. And Drew Holiday played perfect defense. And LeBron just said, I outweigh you by about 60 pounds. And he just laid it up. There's nothing you can do when someone overwhelms you physically. And I feel like Pascal can be like, what's the guy in Memphis? Dylan Brooks. That stuff will not cut it with Barnes. He'll just take him down to the paint and his go-go gadget arms and just lay it up or get a hook shot.
No, I agree. He's got so much potential, and I don't even think he's scratched it yet.
No, he's even pressing. He's not even comfortable yet. And this was my concern. He could be so far along if we just played through him 2 months ago. Where would he be now? He's such a quick learner. He learns so fast, and now we're doing it, and we were losing before. Imagine, like, where would he be now?
Yeah, this is a big reason I wanted to dig into the neuroscience thing, because one of the topics that I really wanted to broach was learning. Like, how do players learn? And also, like, the aggressive expansion of the brain in the early 20s up until about the mid 20s, and how much, like, teaching an already really smart and good, gifted-ish learner. I mean, people may not, like, I think there's such a bias towards vernacular when it comes to how we interpret intelligence. Right? I had to change the way I talked when I was a kid because someone told me, if you don't change the way you talk, you're literally never going to get a job in your life. Granted, I was already pretty smart. I always read books. I just had a certain way of speaking that just didn't vibe with the people around here. So I almost have to, like, code switch. It's weird to say that, but it's true, right? Because people just didn't want to hear it. So Scottie, like, he was a good student. Like, people don't realize that. Florida State is not a joke school, right? He didn't take joke classes. Like, he was a good student. I mean, he was a good student in high school. He was a good student at university. It's just, and like, unlike a lot of NBA athletes who do drop out the minute the season wraps, I mean, he ended up finishing out the year. He finished out his classes. Like, this is a guy who's really passionate about learning stuff. He's open-minded. He is, like, openness to experience, high intelligence, and a commitment and love for basketball. Like, he just loves basketball. So I think, like, you're right. If you give him these reps, and these reps are so early in these early 20s parts, he's right now trying to image scan what type of player he's going to be in the NBA. You can't treat him like Draymond, or you will actually subconsciously make him more like that type of player. You do have to give him these early reps. I do agree that I'm glad that there's accountability, that he's on a winning team, or a team that's at least trying to play winning basketball, so that there's not like a, okay, go screw up for 36 minutes, do whatever the hell you want kind of offense. There is a little bit more structure. I think it could be the best of both worlds for him. But playing through him in the fourth quarter, allowing him to make his mistakes, because he will make mistakes. This is the first time he's seen it. Fred VanVleet has seen that exact defense like probably 18 to 25 times in the NBA at this point. He's studied game film. He's 28 years old. You cannot compare the brain of a 21-year-old to the brain of a 28-year-old. But I can tell you that neither Fred VanVleet or Pascal Siakam or OG Anunoby or literally anybody on this roster could hold a candle to this guy at age 21. If they were all 21 right now, he would be 2 times the player any of them were. So it's really impressive. I see so many gaps in his game right now. Like, his dribble creation is not overly creative. He's just kind of getting by on just gifts at this point.
Yep.
It can be
Yep.
so much tighter. His handle could be so much tighter. His shot could be so much better. His strength can improve so much. His footwork needs to get better. His defensive stance and positioning and understanding
Yep.
of angles needs to get better. All of these things have
Not
to come
rushing.
for
Not
him.
rushing.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
man, can you imagine a player who's so far away from the precipice of what he is about to become, able to go in on the road and put up 26 and whatever he put up, 26, 7 and 4, close the game out 15 points. This is the fourth time this year, guys, that he has finished a game dominantly for you. Like, and I mean dominantly. This game, Brooklyn, Dallas, Brooklyn, New York, and Milwaukee. Those are 4 playoff teams. He didn't do it against Charlotte. Okay. I believe Atlanta could be probably a 5th game too, the one where he had the triple double and then he missed that layup at the end. Like he has shown real star quality throughout this year. And like I'm gonna show some graphics later to just sort of show, like, just tease some of the stuff we're gonna do tomorrow about how he's sort of turned his season around. He's a lot better on offense right now than people give him credit for. But the problem is, if I compare him to a guy like Paolo or Cade, those guys are so further along in terms of their package. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It is very Siakam-esque, like where Siakam, when he was younger, he was just kind of getting by on just raw ability. But then the skills came later. The counters came later. People call him small bag Siakam. He just had that sort of spin move to the thing. And it's like, yeah, like people could scheme that. Well, Barnes kind of is in a similar place, except his passing game and advanced reads are so much further along. But the offensive game is just, it's just brute strength in the post.
Yeah.
Wide open shots. There's so little nuance to his scoring right now. But when that comes, like when that part of his game comes, when he can do like like a dribble, counter, flip, he's kind of like turn, stay on balance, turn around, fade away from the post. Yeah. Who's blocking that? I mean, 6'9", 7'4" wingspan. No one's touching that shot.
He could get the Kawhi. He could work on a Kawhi package where he just creates separation at will with his size, whenever he wants.
Easy. Like I think his upside is just, it's so immense. And it wasn't until I really talked to Brian that all of these thoughts really settled in that interview that we did with Brian, where it's like, geez, like he's right. His game is so immature. There are guys in high school that I know, not even like really good high school players. We're talking like 4-star recruits who have probably a way more advanced handle and a more advanced shot package, like in terms of like how they get their shot off, like in terms of like the footwork that they require to get their shot off, like like when you go to the court, you'd be like, that guy's a baller. That stuff. There are so many guys like that in the world that have that. So for him to be able to do this without that stuff, knowing that is the stuff that is actually just developed through training, right? And it truly is incredible.
Barnes is the only guy in this Project 6ix9ine thing we're doing that he's like an athlete first kind of player, kind of like what Pascal came in as, or OG came in as, or Achua came in as. Barnes is the only one that came in with extremely high IQ.
Yeah, no, and again, like,
he's the only one that came in with a mind for the game and vision, and so he's easier to build up the other skills.
Yeah, I mean, hard work. If he wants it, he's got it. Like, this is not a matter of when. This is not a matter of if. It's just a matter of when. Whenever he wants it, like he can.
Also,
he can be
I
whatever
want
the
to
hell he
mention
wants.
something about Pascal. So obviously Pascal's having a great season. What is he's averaging? What, like 26, 8 and 6, something like that, something ridiculous. I think today he kept his defense was a lot better, so he's capable of it. I think he impacts his team so much more, and he's such a better player. If instead of averaging 26 points, he averages 22. Instead of averaging like 6 assists, he averages 4, and he focuses more on defense. Instead of playing 36 and huffing and puffing, he plays 33. I think he's just so much better and impacts winning more than just being a box score guy on one end and then being a turnstile on the other. Because I think he's capable of it. I don't know if Fred can keep guys in front of him physically. I don't know if he can. Pascal can, I think.
Well, I mean, with Gary being limited defensively and Fred being somewhat compromised defensively, either due to health or due to age or whatever it is, all 3 other guys need to be like ace. Yes. It has to be that way. Otherwise, your defense cannot survive. Because the way offense breaks down defense is 1 line, 2 line, basket. There's always, very rarely, unless it's in transition, will you just get by one guy, like RJ Barrett gets by Scottie Barnes in transition because Scottie goes towards the wrong hand, doesn't force him, goes left, and he gets right to the front of the basket. I mean, that doesn't happen very often in a half court. It's usually you need to get past two. So if the front line of your defense, unfortunately, is always going to be giving up blow-bys to quick guards, and I mean, like Jalen Brunson is not even the least of your problems in terms of quick guards. Like, he might have, I think there's another game against Ja Morant coming up. Like, good luck with that, right? So I think, like, those three guys need to be perfect. I think what's happened the last 3 games is that Siakam has been so far from perfect defensively the last 3 games. He's been so bad. So even when he's switching out into that sort of like frontline role, he's giving up blow-bys. When he's on the back line, he's late to rotate. He doesn't offer a great deal of rim protection. He used to be pretty good at it. That's the part that's kind of messing with my head, because a lot of people like to compare Scottie to Draymond. I used to compare Pascal to sort of a Draymond Scottie clone, not Scottie Barnes, Scottie Pippen. I used to think that he had sort of that connector, but not lead initiator. All like he had bits and pieces of that during the championship run, and now like leveling up, trying to be sort of a lead initiator, sort of like running the offense like he's Jason Tatum. I think a lot of that stuff has sort of gone away, and it's like all that soft tissue stuff, like all that connecting, all of the rover stuff on defense. I think that's what makes Pascal Siakam super valuable. I mean, it may not make him a super max, third team All NBA, but it does make him a champion, because that's the stuff that he did for the championship team. And quite frankly, he's so much better today than he was in 2019. So much better. His shot making ability, but his role has expanded beyond a reasonable level, even though his numbers look fine. It's just when you take that type of role in this type of offense, you do have to be like, you have to be about 5% better than he is.
Yeah,
in
but
my
I think
opinion.
I think they're learning. They can take a little bit of a burden off Pascal's shoulders and put a little bit on Barnes to give him rest or play through him so he can get easier looks. I don't think he doesn't have to be,
I really like that pass from OG today too. Do you remember that?
yeah, to
That was
to
good.
to Barnes, yeah.
He's developing as a playmaker too. So
But
I
he
mean,
needs an
look,
advantage created for him first. Then he works from there.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and like when he drove to the basket, it was Precious who drove to the basket. I think Barnes cleared out. Precious, OG, what do you think of that lineup? This is a kind of like the final question, and then we're gonna move on to Hefe. What do you think of the lineup of Scottie, Pascal, OG, Precious, and Boucher? Like,
I
that's
like
a ton of length. You like it?
yeah, I like it a lot. And I actually wanted to mention something about Precious. So we had overtime. Precious only played 20 minutes.
Right.
Meanwhile, we have Barnes with 45. We have Siakam with 46. We have Fred with 44. And by the way, Precious is tied with Siakam for our leader and rebounder with 8. And I think Achua is our second best defender on the team. And I think he needs more minutes. I don't think you need to ride the starters that hard when Achua is so valuable. Like, you can spare a couple minutes. You can jump his minutes from 20 to 30 and
I
give a
think
guy
he
some
provides
breathing.
a lot on on defense, but offensively, his decision making in the half court offense, it's always a little bit slow and
Yeah,
almost always wrong.
yeah.
So
Him
if
and
he's an
Boucher. Him and Boucher.
initiator or a secondary creator in your offense, like he can primarily be a finisher at this point. Like, I don't see him, even though he played point guard early, and it's a point I've mentioned too many times at this point. I don't love his decision making or Boucher's decision making.
No,
So
none of those two. Yeah.
it's interesting, because if you could package Gary and Fred's skills into Precious and Chris Boucher's bodies
Yeah, yeah.
somehow, and you could keep like their length, their size, their defensive ability, their rebounding, you would be like a championship contender.
But the difference between Boucher and Achua is Achua is a demon on the glass, and he's a great defender. I just think riding the starters that hard
Mm,
for a season that we're having, and also these are like Barnes is developing. Achua is going to develop. Achua is what, 22, 23?
23.
He
23.
needs to develop. I mean, there's going to be growing pains, but the only way to go through it is for him to play. And I think limiting him at 20 on an overtime night, you know,
Yeah, I mean, someone just said Precious equals Boucher with super athleticism. I mean, not really, but I guess I can see where you come with that. Anyway, Mo, thanks a lot for coming on,
Yeah.
and congrats on the funding from MLSE. Really excited to hear about that, man.
no problem. Thank you.
See ya. And Hefe, how you doing?
Yo, how's it going, man?
I'm good.
Awesome. Yeah, honestly, it was a pretty solid game. I think Barnes had like a okay first 3 quarters, and then had like a really good fourth and overtime.
Gotten used to it by now.
Right. And I think I don't know. I wouldn't even say it's his fault. Sometimes it's probably just more so, I don't know, maybe I'm not too sure what's going on in the huddles or whatever, but it's almost like Siakam time. And then when it came fourth quarter, like winning time, I'm not sure if Scottie says, yo, listen, let's do this. I'm not sure if it's like they just know what time it is. I'm not too sure, to be honest, but that's what we've been seeing, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there was a lot of touch issues around the rim. I honestly think there were a lot of fouls that did not get called today on both sides. So I'm not going to complain about the reffing. It was fairly consistent. But I definitely think that there were like at least 3 times where Barnes went up close to the basket where he definitely got fouled. He probably should have lived at the line tonight. I mean, he almost did. Like he got to the line 13 times. That's very hard to do when you're not a superstar.
Yeah.
You know, to get those level of calls in a game where you're not actually getting calls. Like there's a very loose whistle tonight. To get to the line 13 times, like he took abuse.
100%.
Like he took absolute physical abuse to get this win. I think, you know, I like his ability to think the game out on his pace. Like he doesn't rush. I think that's sort of an issue I have with certain players on this team is they rush. I think Gary rushes, Precious rushes, Siakam rushes, Boucher rushes. Who else rushes?
But that's just because the game is not slowed down for them. Like, and I noticed, like, when I played basketball, to be honest, when I was in high school, oh my gosh, like stuff that when I watched the game, I could see it happen. But when I'm actually playing, it's just moving too fast for me to process it fast enough, right? Scottie is just, I guess he's been playing the game longer than these guys, where the game has just slowed down for him, right?
Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly it. And I'm always surprised when he rushes because he did have a couple of, you know, possessions. The first shot he took in the game, I absolutely hated. And I thought we were past that. Like, I swear to God, I've been like very vocal about Scottie cannot be taking like those kind of shots. And he takes that sort of off balance mid-range shot. And I'm like, damn it. Yeah. But he turned it around and that was really positive to see.
Yeah.
You know, again, like what I spoke about in the past 2, not to make this entirely about Scottie. I think he just had a really good game, but there's so much room to grow here. Like,
definitely.
So much room to grow. What did you think of the rotations tonight? Anyone else stick out to you in the rotation?
Honestly, I did want to say, like, I guess it's because Scottie took more of an offensive load in the fourth. Siakam's on-ball defense reminded me, like, yo, this guy, he could still move those feet. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I'm not, and it's just an effort thing because usually it's just a blow by. He's playing with his hands, and then it's 4-on-5, right? But he was actually moving his feet today. Got a perimeter 3-point block on RJ Barrett. But that kind of made me think, like, okay, hypothetically, because I mean, I do stocks, right?
Okay.
When you have a stock, you want to sell it at its high.
Oh, okay.
I
was like, how's he going to segue this? All right, there we go. All right.
So I would say Fred's value is not at its highest point it's ever been right now.
Well, okay, yeah.
Last year, All-Star game, but pre-All-Star game would be the highest value he was ever at, right? Maybe right after the finals, 2019, maybe, I don't know. But I'll say it might not be the smartest thing to sell him right now. We still have 1 more year of full control over him, right?
No, we don't.
No? Is it not? Is it player option this coming off thing?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
he has the player option. If he plays well, he's gonna demand a new contract. If he doesn't play well, I mean, let me just put it this way: there's no way in hell he's picking up that player option.
No
Trust
doubt,
me.
no doubt.
There's no way that he takes that kind of gamble because if you take that player option, you're going do or die, and you could get injured, and you have back issues, and you're an undersized guard. I'm telling you, man, like this guy is literally half a step away from the G League. Like it's that bad.
Okay, so he's I guess use it or lose it. Okay, and then Trent is actually playing pretty solid, maybe a down past 2 games, but his value is pretty good. He could be traded, but realistically, OG
Also an expiring. I mean, I think people.
Yeah. We know we have to move him.
OG and Pascal have incredible value right now. Scottie has incredible value. I think Precious might have some incredible value. I just, I mean, look, if you're buying into this Vision 6-9 thing, if you're committed to it, you haven't really seen it through at this point, right? You haven't really done it. You've kind of done it. You've loosely done it, but you've always had pieces that were core pieces that play 35 to 40 minutes a night that don't fit that vision. And, towards the back end of the show, I promised that I would go into just like the variations of zone and trying to understand why this Vision 6-9 thing could be so lethal for this team. And man, it has everything to do with Vision 6-9. Like it has everything to do with, being able to zone up entire sides of the court and just suffocating defenses. It's so incredible what you could do if you're willing to have 5 guys who buy into it, maybe 7. I mean, look, tonight we saw that big lineup, right? And we've been seeing more and more of it, right? As Precious has come back, his chemistry with Boucher on that unit with Scottie, Pascal, where Scottie handles point, Pascal's a shooting guard in that lineup. I mean, do you realize that your starting point guard is 6'9"? Well, your point guard is 6'9". Your shooting guard is 6'10". Your small forward is OG Anunoby, who is at times a small ball center. I mean, you basically have 3 centers. I mean, let's be real. Pascal started at center. OG has started at center. And Pascal Pascal, Scottie, OG, Precious, and Boucher. You're basically playing 5 guys who play center.
Yeah, the only thing is you do see, like, on the offensive glass tonight, for example, New York had to capitalize. I guess Robinson and Randall are a bit heavy on
Robinson, Randall plus Hartenstein is a hell of a front court.
100%. Like, every free throw that would potentially miss, I was like afraid they'll get an offensive rebound, to be honest. And
well, this is exactly why I made that point earlier about what if you could supplant or sort of transplant all of the skill set that you have in Fred VanVleet and put it into a much bigger player, right?
Yeah,
because he's not guys, just so everyone's clear, there are dozens of guys who are 6'8", 6'9", who are more than capable of shooting more than 33% from 3 in the NBA. I'm pretty sure I know a couple of them who are not even in the league right now. So this idea, like when I look at that big lineup, the only thing I'm thinking is, man, the decision making, the basketball IQ on this lineup is absolute horseshit, right? Because you're having to play 2 guys who don't make great decisions, and you're having a 3rd guy who's not a great on-ball creator, and you have a 4th guy who's a second-year guy in Scottie, and basically like Scottie, OG, and Pascal all need spacing to attack. So you're turning everyone into a shooter without any shooters to space out for them. It's a really awkward lineup. Yeah. If Boucher hit another 3 today, he hit 2 last game. So if that can become a sort of recurring trend, if he and Precious have had stretches where they've been competent 3-point shooters. Precious after the All-Star game last year was 39%. But every time I see that big lineup, I'm just like, oh my God, imagine Otto Porter, a healthy Otto Porter. Yeah. Instead of a Precious Achiuwa in that lineup, it would be lethal. Yeah. Because not only is he smart, not only is he a way better shooter, not only is he a way better defender, he's just such a stabilizing force. He's a better post defender. He's literally everything. And it's so sad that he's missing this season. It really is. Like if he had not gone out for the season, I don't think I would be so aggressively pro tank. But the minute he went out, I'm like, in the playoffs, you need him. There's nothing on this roster that can replace him.
Yeah, no doubt. What's your thoughts on? Honestly, I think I was watching a video of teams that are regretting trades and whatnot. Of course, Minnesota's in there. What's your thoughts on? I don't think he's even tradable right now, but an OG for Cat swap.
No,
For
a lot of reasons, but like I get it from a talent standpoint. You win 100 times over. Like Cat is a way more talented player than OG, right? They're similar in age, but number one, the contracts don't even come close to matching.
Well, no. Of course, we're gonna have to add probably some picks and match salary because I think he's gonna pay like 33. OG's at like 18. But my thing is
getting paid more than 33.
I think Cat might be around 33.
Karl Anthony Towns salary. Hold on, he's making a ton of money, man. Hold on. It's 33.83 million. Yeah.
So
Okay.
I know OG's
And
at like,
OG's
let's say
at like 18.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you would
I
have
know
to
we have to
add
match
a whole
salary.
other OG to make that happen, which means you'd either have to add Fred VanVleet or you'd have to add Gary Trent Jr. because why are they taking on scraps from you?
No, of course, and then we're gonna have to add picks, in my opinion, because I mean, Cat is he's an all-star, right? But you said you don't like it. My thoughts was just that, I mean, well, for Minnesota, it makes sense for them because they need to recoup on some assets. They lost so much for Gobert, and it's really not working. Maybe they give the keys to Ant, and then they have OG alongside him, and they have, I'm not sure. Maybe that entices them a little bit. And then for us, it's like now we have an actual like big man center that could, maybe bump bodies with Embiid when we do face Philly.
Yeah, but I mean, it totally collapses your entire defensive identity of 6'9", everyone switch, because while Karl Anthony Towns is a really big dude and he can do like a ton of good stuff in terms of like post defense, there just isn't a lot that he can offer on switches. And if you're aggressively like playing 6'9" everybody, the whole concept here is to be able to switch. You have this massive mismatch that you can always put into a Spain pick and roll, and he's just, it's not even like the prevalence of the Spain pick and roll is just, it's setting the league on fire, right? It's also expanding offense, because offense is expanding at a rate in like, just so everyone's aware, offensive rating in the NBA, which is basically a rate at which which teams score per 100 possessions, is at 115.5. That's incredible. If I'm not mistaken, someone correct me in the comments, I believe the Phoenix Suns 7 seconds or less offense was like 107, 108.
Yeah,
like,
JJ Redick had a podcast where he was putting stuff in perspective, saying like the number one offense, like, I don't know, 2017 or whatever, would be like 11th this year, some shit like that.
Yeah, so I mean, so to have like basically like if you can't guard that action, teams will basically spam it until you, and then so basically what you're forced to do is you're forced to hide. You're forced to hide bad defenders. The rate at which offense is expanding and evolving in the NBA, and the rate at which teams are learning these actions, basically what is happening is, if you don't guard properly, if you like, let's say you have a Duncan Robinson, right? A guy like Duncan Robinson, like a defensive liability, but an offensive specialist, a shooting specialist, right? The Miami Heat paid him a ton of money. I think he paid him like $80 or $90 million. It was a crazy amount, right? Because shooting is so valued, right? But shooting without the defense, right? So now, so Duncan shoots like, even if he shot 40% from three, it's like, if you want, you could, on the other end, you could get that back just by spamming him. So you're breaking even at best. And if you guard him well enough, you push him off the line, now you're losing that. So it's so incredible to me how much offense has just expanded. I mean, if you're a Raptor fan, you're not really seeing that because their offense has not expanded. They're one of the worst offensive teams in the league. But half-court offense around the league has absolutely exploded. It's not just take fouls. It's not just rule changing. It's not just the referees, being more assertive, blowing the whistle and getting guys to the line. Actually, it's none of that. It's just how unguardable some of the new actions and wrinkles that they're putting in. And again, it will adjust. I'm sure by next year, teams will game this out. They'll try to stop it. But I think if you're looking at the trend over like a 10-year period, offense is obviously exploding at a much higher rate than defense. And to have a player who, if he's on the court, that another team could potentially be a threat to go off for 140 any night.
Yeah, I guess, but almost every like top team in the league actually has that big five, right? Like Memphis has it in Adams, Philly has it in Embiid, even Milwaukee still uses like Brook Lopez, right?
Brook Lopez is a defensive player of the year candidate, probably front runner. Just being 7 feet doesn't make you a good defender. Karl Anthony Towns can be a solid-ish post defender, but outside of 5 to 7 feet, he's lost. He has heavy feet. He has poor attention to detail. He's very lazy on defense, in my opinion, from the games that I've watched of him. And quite frankly, I'm not really sure how he blends in with your core. But I definitely get the talent side of it. He's probably if he was on this team, he might be the most talented player on this team. He probably would be the most talented.
Too. I was just kind of thinking almost like you're almost emulating that 2019 roster when you have that big five You have like a
Yeah,
Siakam, a
but
Barnes.
there's such a gap between who Karl Anthony Towns is and who Marc Gasol is. Like, not
Defensively, it's not close. They're different players altogether. It's really just a prototype thing more than anything.
You
Yeah,
know what
you're
it
right.
is? I think I have just such a beef with this idea of needing a 7-footer. Partly because I think it's something that a lot of people in the media have irresponsibly just always put out, because it's such a casual, unfortunately, like an easy thing to just say, like, the Raptors need a 7-foot guy.
It's
Look
not
at
even
the
one
look,
of those. I think
but
it's just trying.
but here's a counterpoint to that. Did you see the NBA Finals last year?
Yeah.
Okay, who was the 7-footer who was playing for the Boston Celtics? Rob Williams is 6'8", Al Horford is 6'9". Draymond Green is 6'6", and Kevon Looney is like at max 6'8".
Kevin
Okay?
Looney, 6'8", you think? Is he?
Absolutely. 6'8", maximum 6'9". So, like this idea that, like, yeah, man, he might even be shorter than that. 6'8", 6'9". He's 6'9" in shoes, man. I remember his draft measurables as a reason why, like, he was poorly touted as a prospect.
Yeah.
It's because he was widely considered undersized. But what do all those guys have in common? Massive wingspans,
Yeah.
really switchable, and they're capable defenders, and they're capable of actually guarding. Like, I'm telling you, like, there's a reason why the Minnesota Timberwolves have struggled to adapt with Karl Anthony Towns in the lineup or outside the lineup. Anyways, thank you for bringing that up. It's a really interesting thing. I haven't thought about Karl Anthony Towns being available at all, so it's very interesting to at least explore that idea.
Yeah, no doubt, for sure.
All right, Hefe, thanks a lot, man.
Awesome. Take care, man.
Cheers, man. We have one final caller, which will be Jonathan. And then we'll quickly do the zone thing, and we might actually get out of here in an hour and a half. I might actually stay true to my word for the first time about this. Hey, Jonathan, how are you?
Hey, not too bad yourself?
I'm good.
Good. So I didn't actually watch the game. I was working. I called in because I had a few other questions.
Sure.
So a little while back, actually during the Christmas break, I started watching games slow motion, and I created like an Excel sheet and try and track for every single play. Was it a quality shot? How was the defense? Things like that. And so I just have a couple questions about that. And it's mainly around contested shots. And I don't know whether a contested shot is a good shot or not. So first thing, if a shooter's on fire, like I think the last New York game, Julius Randle hit like 4 or 5 threes in the first quarter, and OG was up on him. Would you consider somebody who just hit 4 threes in a row to take a contested three? Would that be a good shot because they're on fire, or is a contested shot always a bad shot?
Good question. I think that you could make a case that it's okay at some point that you could take a bad shot and still make it, right? Like, it depends on the other variables in the court. It also depends on your team's offensive rebounding positioning in case of a missed shot, right? Like, there's a great deal of luck involved in shooting, right? If you track a player's 3-point shooting month to month to month to month, you'll see like high degrees of variance. And if you track game to game, like for instance tonight, I think OG was like 0 for 6, and then he hit 2. There's great deal of luck and great deal of rhythm involved. Yes, once a player does get going, there is a tendency that once the water turns on, you do need to aggressively start pushing them off the line. Because they're starting to feel themselves. So I would consider with every made shot, especially for players who seem to be on fire, that there's less of I have less of an issue with them taking it. It just becomes a heat check at that point. Yeah.
Would you say something similar for the size of the offensive player, like a 6-foot player taking a semi-contested mid-range shot? In my mind, would not be the same thing as a 7-foot, like, say Kevin Durant or something, right?
Okay, like let me try to pull this up, and then hopefully you can just see my screen, and I'll be able to pull it up for you. Let me just you're able to see the screen, right?
I see you and myself.
Okay, great. So let me just bear with me, guys. I'm just gonna pull up something for Jonathan here. Chart. Okay. Give me 1 sec there. I'm sorry. I wanted to have this prepared beforehand, but did not. Okay. Okay, so this is Scottie Barnes's shot chart. I'm going to put it up on the screen so that hopefully everyone can see it. And then we can just sort of understand how I, as a coach, would approach guarding someone like him. Okay, so does everyone see it? Now
Yep,
you see it, right?
Yep.
Okay, so the dark parts are basically like the aggressively darker colors show where Scottie is above league average. You'll see that him hitting shots from one side, he's about 46% from that dark corner on threes, and on the other side, he's about 7%.
Right. A big difference.
Okay. Yes. So players have hotspots, whether people like to believe that or not. There are obviously certain shots that are just really comfortable because of how a player releases shots. And those hotspots need to be guarded aggressively. Certain hands need to be guarded aggressively. So there's so many variables that go into, was it off of reversal? Like, did the ball move like 2-3 times before that player is taking a shot? Or are they just coming up and taking a contested shot, early in the clock before their team has had a chance to come up? That's a lot of Fred VanVleet offense, unfortunately. Those, to me, regardless of whether they go in or not, are bad shots. Like, there's no reason to take them. That shot is always going to be available. That just, it just feels like one of those, like, I just want to get mine in that moment, right? I always look at, where is the defense in relation to the offense when the shot is taken? For instance, let's say you're Julius Randle, you're coming up the court, it's just OG guarding you, and you are leading the break. It's in transition, and your big is trailing their big for an offensive rebounding position. It's a great shot. To me, it's a great shot. If you're comfortable in that spot, to take that shot, because you have a much higher percentage chance of actually getting the offensive rebound if you miss, right? Long shot, long rebound. The guy's not even in position yet, but, and we saw a lot of that tonight. So being able to make this sort of like calculations on the fly is, of course, extremely difficult. To remember where Julius Randle is like 46% from and where he really struggles from. Like, so Scottie Barnes right here, right? If you look, there's, his shot chart is getting much better. It started the year out, there was a lot more of these big blots in the mid-range, and he's shooting abysmally from the mid-range, right? So if you're a defender, if a guy shoots worse from mid-range, considerably worse from mid-range than he does from three, then you actually have no reason to guard him. You have no reason. You can actually back off of him when he's in that high post area, right? If he's not consistently in motion. So I think that that's a really big part of how he has changed his game, because he's now aggressively hunting positions on the court where he's more like 67 to 70%. And because of that, defenses are actually having to guard him. But yeah, I hope I answered your question a little bit there.
Oh, yeah. I actually had another one, but I think you already answered that one too. So.
Oh, what was the other question?
Well, it was just about driving to the, like, kind of same idea, contested shot, but driving to the basket. Obviously you're most likely going to have a big defender there, but I guess if you're good on the inside, if we go to that chart and you're pretty dark on the inside, then that would be a good shot, unless there's 3 defenders on you. But
exactly. So like this shot chart for Scottie shows that, he's a good paint finisher. And quite frankly, he's always been a good paint finisher. But if I were to pull up Fred VanVleet's shot chart, and hold on, let me just pull it up.
Yep.
Okay, wait, one sec. 2022, 2023. Okay, so Fred VanVleet's shot chart is almost an inverted shot chart for Scottie. So here we go. So this is Fred VanVleet's shot chart, right here.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Right? So his paint finishing is absolutely abysmal and well below league average.
Yeah.
So if a guy, if league average, he's about 10%, usually he's 10 to 15% below league average right from there. He has a corner, obviously it's the same corner as Scottie where he does really well, but as you can see, even the 3-point shooting is actually average to below league average across the board, right? So he's really not, and of course the mid-range is full of, good and bad spots. So this is not what Fred VanVleet's shot chart looked like last year when he was actually pretty decent. Yeah, like so like I can definitely pull up his shot chart from last year as well, just to show the difference. I think this is, I mean, is this interesting for people? You can let me know in the comments.
Interesting for me.
Just okay, cool. Yeah. So this is Fred's shot chart from last year right here.
Oh,
And you can see the massive difference.
Yeah.
Not only in the volume of attempts, because he was shooting a lot more last year and obviously played more games last year, but just you see that there are some consistently really good spots in the mid-range where he's exceedingly hot and very above average. Most of the three-point line for him last year, even though he had an absolute horseshit second half of the season, is either average to well above average. So again, if you compare Fred last year to Fred this year, you see a massive difference. But the one common here is he's still terrible in the paint. But last year, at least, you know, the high, you know, like the 8-foot-ish range, you know, like right, not right, but you see the difference, right?
Like top of the paint there.
Yeah, like right entering the paint, little floaters, little step backs, you know, he still had that. And this year it's just gone, right?
Yeah.
Like it's all pretty much cold. So I think that that's a really big part of why Fred VanVleet is so much worse this year. Because, you know, like that's just a part of his game. And this is, by the way, despite having like 6 or 7 really hot performances in the paint where he did really well. So you just have to imagine like how bad the rest of the performances have been to considerably tank his value. So if I'm guarding someone like Fred VanVleet, and, you know, traditionally I think teams respect shooters who have a reputation of being good shooters well after they are in a slump. So Fred VanVleet is still kind of being guarded like a good shooter. If he keeps this up for an entire year, people will stop guarding him out there. And at that moment, if he doesn't then miraculously start hitting like 40%, his career will be over. So at this point, he's still coasting off of the residual success that he enjoyed as a shooter last year, and teams are sort of pushing him off the line. Problem is, when teams push you off the line, you really have one of two things you can do. Either you can step into a mid-range shot, which is what Kevin Durant does all the time, or you can go right to the basket. And if you're not a good finisher in the basket, you really don't have a ton of places on the court that you can score. So yeah, like I think I've definitely gone off on a tangent, but hopefully that somehow answered
No,
the
you
question.
explained a lot. So yeah, thank you very much, man.
My pleasure, and you know, keep charting.
Will
Cheers.
do. All right, have a
Cheers.
good one.
Good one. Okay, and we have just enough time to talk a little bit about zone defense and my thoughts on zone defense. Yeah, sorry, let me just get some of the comments here. Sorry, I was not looking at the comments. I'd love to see Gary's shot chart. Okay, we can look at Gary's shot chart. Give me a second, guys. 22. Okay. So this is Gary Trent's shot chart for this year. You'll notice that like there's definitely like a side of the court for almost every player where they're like super hot from, and then there's a side of the court where they're not so super hot from. This is the same case with Gary Trent. Here we go. So this is Gary's shot chart for this year. So look at the paint finishing. It's actually at about league average consistently. And ironically, his paint finishing for 8 feet-ish is actually consistently above league average. This is great. He's been good. Like he's been really much better, given that he was in a bit of a shooting slump at one point. Like he's been really good, in my opinion. Okay. This is prior to today's game, but I did want to just tease at this a bit. So Scottie's season is turning around slowly, just a little bit. We're seeing just across the board his numbers from this year to last year somewhat being consistently up. Per 100 possessions, he's taking a bigger load on offense. Obviously, he's had some poor shooting here, but you know his 3-point shooting started out blistering hot. He started out 57%. Regressed eventually to 42%, then eventually regressed to I think he was at 35% for the longest time. He was making 1 out of every three shots. And then in January, his 3-point shooting just absolutely went through the floor. But now in January, he's also averaging close to 19 points per game, just slightly over 19 points per game, I believe, after this game. So, we've seen Scottie buy into a completely different role, and maybe as he's gone closer and closer to that role, the shooting has sort of, worn off. Now to talk about zone defense on both defense and offensive side and what I think the Raptors could potentially be doing. Before we do that, I just want to sort of shout out my 3 players of the game. 3 players of the game: Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr. I think, I went back and forth. Like, should it be Siakam? Should it be Trent? Should it be Precious? It was hard to choose, but I think Gary was consistently good early into the game, and I don't know how you keep this game close without his shot making. So I kind of liked what he did tonight. Now to move on to the zone a little bit. I would have loved to have like a video to show, and perhaps we might do that tomorrow, but here we go. So to those who don't completely understand the zone defense, this is sort of what it looks like. To clarify, like, what is the concept of a zone? So you either have man-to-man zone or a hybrid of man and zone. So basically what a zone defense does is it forces a defender to guard a circle on the court. So you guard your zone, and zones are circles. So effectively those zones shift and move a little bit. And as the ball moves towards your zone, you push up towards the edge of the circle or back towards the edge of the circle. You may actually have a defender come up who's closer to your zone to almost double the ball as well, to sort of force a pass or to end that. What the zone does is it leaves corners open and it leaves the middle open. So you need to be able to attack middle and corner. Typically what attacks the middle: penetration, paint penetration, or passes to the high post. Nikola Jokic is a zone buster from the heavens. Like, he's great at it. He can just flash into the high post. He can sort of like, hold that ball right above his head, and then he can just dart it. And it's quick reads. The concept of strong side and weak side in the zone defense is that the zone adjusts constantly. Players in the zone adjust constantly and gravitate slightly towards the ball. Okay. You've obviously heard at some point ball moves faster than man, and that has always been true. So what you need to be able to do to break a zone is you have to have a very exceptional penetrator who is also a really good decision maker. Think Ja Morant. Ja Morant is a zone buster to hell. And actually, this is why he's such a good playoff performer. And, no one's been able to touch him in the playoffs because he can get right into the middle of the defense and he can collapse it, and he sees everything. He can see those passes. He can actually finish at the rim. Scottie should be able to do some variation of that. I'm not saying he's ever going to be bursty like Ja Morant or creative like Ja Morant, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you get 2 points. It's just getting 2 points. So what Scottie mentioned in the past 2 post games really is talking about getting the ball from side to side. What does he mean by that? So as defenses adjust towards the ball, let's say Pascal Siakam is starting the offense out on this side of the court, right? So the defense, which is scattered throughout here, I apologize for my broken, phone case. I don't have like the ability to point at the court. But let's just say Siakam is starting out here. So the defense, which is around here, is going to gravitate towards that side. They may even shore up. There might be a paint defender who might, close off that lane. And what they're doing is responding to Siakam's driving gravity, because he's obviously shown an ability to finish in the paint, right? They're gonna react very differently to that situation if Precious Achiuwa has the ball or Chris Boucher has the ball, which is, sort of the value of having really good offensive players, is that they consistently force the defense to react to them. So now if Siakam doesn't dance with the ball too much and the defense can't quite figure it out, if it's a quick move, then the reaction could be a mistake. It could be an overreaction. So let's say all 5 defenders now funnel towards him. And if you're a Raptor fan, you've definitely seen our defense overreact to an offensive player. We had 5 guys on Giannis when he found Grayson Allen in the corner. Those moves have to be quick so the defense can't organize. Earlier the better. So early in transition, even better. But what can happen is when you take the ball from that side, let's say Siakam drives from this side, He gets right here. He collapses 4 defenders. Passing here, so passing to this corner, is going to be way less advantageous than passing here or here. And that is getting the ball from side to side. That's something that Scottie Barnes does exceptionally well. And when he can, he doesn't even have to be like a crazy dribbler or a great ball handler right now to do it. All he has to do really is catch and release. He just catches and releases the pass. And so often you'll see Scottie get either doubled on one side of the court, or you'll see him like collapse the middle and have like 2 defenders react to him. And he will just basically shift it to the weak side. Whatever side the defense is less reactionary on, and whichever side. So it's like an immediate calculus. So let's say that the gift of Scottie and the gift of, I don't want to compare him to Jokic, because Jokic is really like on a tier on his own. Like I think he might be the greatest passer of all time at this point. But gifted passers, what they can do is they can internally make the calculus of defense versus offense and the percentage of opportunity that they're creating with their decision. For instance, let's say OG is parked on the strong side, right? So there is a defender within 10 feet of him, and probably by the time the pass gets to him, he's going to have a lightly contested 3 if Scottie darts it and no looks it. He's buying him time. The no look plus the dart pass buys OG an extra fraction of a second before the defense can react. What you'll often see with Fred or Pascal is they'll just project the whole pass. They'll see it. Everyone will know where they're going to pass to, and they'll pass there. So by the time the pass gets there, the guy can't do anything with it because it's a combination of cascading bad decisions. Number 1, projecting a pass, therefore making it very predictable. Number 2, it's kind of like, it's often like a lob pass, or like it's inaccurately placed, right? And number 3, it's very often to the wrong player, right? Passing to Chris Boucher, who is somewhat open in the corner, is not the same as finding an Otto Porter Jr. in the corner. Very often putting a guy, like there was a play today where Fred VanVleet passes to Scottie Barnes and there's like a defender right in front of him ready to rip the ball out of his hands. And as a passer, you have to understand where all those other players are, and you have to be able to understand what the guy you're passing to, what is he supposed to do with it? Sometimes you see like, and Scottie learned this in Summer League. He was passing the ball to Freddie Gillespie under the basket, and Freddie Gillespie just kept dropping it. Eventually you adjust. You realize that guy has bad hands. He has stone hands. He can't catch the ball. Stop passing to him in that situation. So making that calculus. So to get back to the example of OG on the strong side, let's say the other side has Kem Birch or Christian Coloco spacing out, and that side's open. So what a novice passer will do is he'll just pass to the more open player, right? Thinking, okay, well, that guy looks more open right now. But what the advanced passer will do is he'll be able to determine how much that guy's openness and how much this guy's contestedness cancel each other out. And he could maybe say, I think OG can hit that shot at a 32% rate, even though I would like to find him in positions where he's a 38% shooter. I think he can hit that shot at a 32% rate. I think Coloco is probably going to be 27% on that corner. And to be able to make those decisions in rapid fire, that's why having guys who are gifted passers in the middle can be a really big zone buster. Now the flip side of the zone, and I realize we're trending dangerously over 1 hour and 30 minutes. We just want to go the other side of the zone, and the other side of defense generally is that length can really, really make up for defense. Length and height, but specifically length and quickness. So I explained earlier that every single player within the zone has matchups. They don't have matchups necessarily. They have spots in the zone that they're consistently reacting to. Now, the Raptors consistently put players in rotation, so sometimes you'll see a player blow by a player and you'd be like, oh, that player is so terrible. Actually, sometimes it's by design. You're pushing the guy off the line, and guarding a guy way too close off the 3-point line is just a way to make sure that he doesn't get a 3, right? Like if Scottie or Pascal or OG really, really, really wanted to guard a guy one-on-one and just, make sure that he takes a contested shot, like they could probably do that. Like all 3 of them are good enough defensively to do that, and Precious Achiuwa included. But sometimes what you're doing is defense, as an NBA defense, is consistent trade-offs. So what you're doing is you're putting the players into rotation. So you're pushing RJ Barrett off the line because you realize that him taking a contested 2 or even an open 2 is probably going to be like just slightly off balance and uncomfortable, is going to be a lot better for your defense than him taking a contested 3, which he can maybe hit at a 32% clip or something. So the concept here is longer defenders who are quick. So it's not just length, it's quickness, length, and engagement on defense can make you legendary defensively. The perfect example of this, I think, are the 2 teams that were in the finals last year. Specifically, Boston. I think Boston, had Jason Tatum not had an injured shoulder, probably was in position to be like the greatest defense of all time, right? I think it's just such a difficult team to go up against, and you saw it when the Brooklyn Nets, who have 2 incredible zone busters, in my opinion, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, couldn't do shit against that defense, because everything that I explained about, the type of players you want against the zone defense, like corner shooters, movement shooters, big, strong pick setters, because picks are another way to get, players outside of their zone assignments and kind of scramble the zone. Good decision makers in the middle. Like, I think, maybe having a Ben Simmons may have changed that series a little bit. Maybe it wouldn't have been a sweep if Ben Simmons is, because he's a really good zone buster himself, in the middle and in the dunker spot. But I think that Boston showed us the blueprint for the future in terms of how NBA defenses need to react. They had a lot of switchable defenders. They had incredible paint defense in Al Horford, Rob Williams. They had good man defenders. They had different sized defenders, but they were all kind of 6'6", 6'7". Even Marcus Smart, who's like the smallest guy in that bunch, he's 6'4", and he's got long arms, and he's super strong. Like, if Marcus Smart is matched up against a power forward, that power forward is going to have a rough night. So having guys who can guard 1 through 4, 1 through 5, number one, helps with the mismatches that perhaps the zone could create. Number two, having guys who have length can be very disruptive in the zone, because a big part of zone defense is, trying to gap passing lanes and shut down passing angles. That can make the other team, the offense, very uncomfortable. So I think that what the Raptors showed in the playoffs, once Fred VanVleet went out, was pretty much the blueprint for their future. Now, which players really fit into that on this team? Precious Achiuwa, obviously. Christian Coloco, he's very switchable and he's huge. And I think he could really fit into the back line of that zone. And he can also shore up like the second line of defense. And he's also an incredible paint protector. I think the Raptors have drafted so well. OG Anunoby, of course. Scottie Barnes, he needs to get a little bit quicker and probably learn to trust his length a little bit more. But he's probably like one of the, he's one of the keys to making all of this work. Pascal Siakam, if you can lessen his offensive load and just, engage him a little bit more defensively, like it could be incredible, like what he could be, for your defense. Otto Porter, if he was healthy, I think is an excellent guy. We saw a lot of this against some bad teams like Houston, where he was just basically shutting down an entire side of the floor, like his area. Sometimes, like the Raptors switch up box and one, triangle and one. They do all sorts of like different things within the zone. And then they're switching up like constantly from possession to possession just to scramble up the offense and not show them the same look constantly. But there's a lot of hybrid defenses that this team is playing. Nick Nurse is way, way on another level in terms of defensive creativity. But what complicated defenses can do is they can expose you. They can make you look really stupid. That's what happened against the Atlanta Hawks. When players don't rotate properly, when they don't buy in properly, when they're not paying attention to certain things, we're not, like all of those assignments have to work on a string. One player who's not consistently, committed to that end of the floor, and it's basically a blowout. So there isn't a lot of room for error. Basically, the way the Raptors play, there isn't a lot of room for error. So when you talk about trading for non-defenders, you talk about trading for pylons, big guys like Karl-Anthony Towns, that to me, it's like a very scary proposition, because you basically have to change everything about your defensive identity if you take on a guy who has to play 40 minutes and he's a bad defender. I do think this team will eventually get to a point where they could maybe mask a not so great big, who's not super switchable, or maybe a guard who can be hidden on a corner shooter or something. Like you can always like help him out and keep him like sort of on the strong side and aggressively help if that player is exceptional. But I don't see why, in this day and age, when with the roster that you already have, why you'd be wanting to trade for deficit defenders. And I think that might be one of the biggest reasons why, despite, his improved offense, and I showed his shot chart for Gary Trent Jr., I think that might be one reason why he might be on his way out, because he really is one of the guys who just absolutely doesn't fit into this, not only from a size perspective, just as a plus defender. They've sort of used him as a disruptor. He gambles a lot, and people sometimes get angry at him for gambling for steals. That's actually his job. He's supposed to be doing that. That's not like something he invented. That's the way to keep him on the court, because he has to be able to do that, because you're really just playing a game of Moneyball at this point, guys. For every steal you get, that's 0 points. That's a huge advantage for your offense, right? So you have to take the trade-off. You just shut down the other team, and basically, like, if another team, if we talked about the offense, NBA offenses, being offensive rating 115.5, right? You shut down a possession by getting a steal, that's huge. Like, you just saved yourself like 1.15 points, right? By doing that, because of how good teams are at shooting the three now. So by saving that 1.15 points, you also actually gave yourself an advantage on the offensive end, because transition efficiency typically in the NBA is way greater than half court efficiency. So you not only take the other team out of the offense by shutting down the possession and converting it into a live ball turnover, not a dead ball turnover, a live ball turnover, but then you also give yourself a slight boost on your shot attempt because it's in transition. I think that Nick Nurse's defense is really good and sophisticated. I think that certain guys haven't bought into it at all times, and I think that I have my issues with this rotations. I have my issues with this offense, and that could just be a Gleason problem. But personnel, etc., buy-in, I think Nick Nurse has showed in the past that he is capable of being a very, very good coach. So that's sort of my takeaway from that. Tamberlin says no trust. I agree. And it's really hard to do this when Fred VanVleet is a liability, and whether it's health or age or whatever, he just hasn't been as good. Pascal hasn't been as good. Scottie hasn't been as good defensively. There's 3 guys, in your starting lineup that are supposed to make up for Gary Trent being out there, because Gary Trent's never going to be good defensively. I went on Raptors Digest and I said he's your worst defender on your team, and that hasn't changed. He's just as bad, if not worse. So to make up for that guy, all other 4 guys need to be overwhelmingly positive defenders. And just unfortunately right now, they're just positive. Siakam's just positive, like slightly above, OG's positive, like plus defender. Fred's average-ish, like he's still above average, like per the analytics, but in terms of point and attack defense, I think it's taken a major slippage. Scottie Barnes, again, like he needs to get healthy, but he hasn't been great defensively this year either. He's doing a lot more now. I mean, we're seeing a lot more activity in the paint. Where I think the best thing for this team to do, to be honest, is to reverse the positions of Scottie and Pascal in the defense. I think Scottie's a smarter defender. Like, he sees more. I think he's a better communicator. He barks out and stuff. Drizzle Drake, Siakam for Mobley. So Tamberlin said earlier, she made the point about shooting luck, right? And I thought this was very interesting, right? So would you believe if I told you that teams are shooting 40% from 3 with Evan Mobley on the court and 28% from 3 with him off the court? I think that's a lot of shooting luck, personally. If you watch Evan Mobley, you understand that he's an overwhelmingly good defender, but sometimes when you check the analytics, you're like, why the hell is this not converting? Why are we not seeing this? Is it because, teams are putting out better 3-point shooters because they realize the paint is clogged? Is it because, it's hard to say, because Evan Mobley is a really switchable big. He does crazy things every single night on defense. Siakam is capable of a lot of that stuff too. I'm just saying, like, he is capable of guarding 1 through 4 at least, or 2 through 5. And I think one of the biggest disappointments this season for me is, despite his offensive brilliance in certain games, in most games, really, it's how much the defense has taken a bit of a step back. So I would like to see more of the Siakam we saw tonight. I would like to see more of the Scottie we saw tonight, probably with better paint finishing, just getting to the line, aggressively banging down low. I mean, he's going to be sore like hell after this. I mean, it's not easy doing what he did tonight. But unfortunately, when you're, and Fred VanVleet, a really great game, I think, for him as well. What was I going to say? Right. So two pieces of content that I just want to quickly tease out. Three pieces of content that I really want to quickly tease out. Number one, yesterday on Instagram, I made a poll about whether or not you guys would want to see a video about neuroscience and basketball and sort of how it's all connected. There's so many things happening on the court, right? At all times. Like when you really, really look at it, when you slow it down, as I believe his name was James, when James was talking about like slowing the game down, like I think it's so interesting. And the more you slow it down, by the way, guys, like the more you can see it in real time. Because once you start watching the game at slow speed and you really start dissecting like what's happening, like when you're watching it in real speed, then it becomes so much more interesting. I hate to be like a nerd about this, but it just becomes so cool to be able to see like, oh, they're switching the defense there, or that player just missed that rotation. It just makes it really cool. It becomes so much more exciting than, oh, look, tall guy threw the basket, threw the ball in the basket, which is unfortunately how a lot of people just unfortunately see the game. So the number one thing I want to do with that is I want to go through how Scottie Barnes has turned around his season. I want to do a deep dive into his game, the last three games, really. So number one, Hornets, like his playmaking. Number two, Hawks, his passing. And number three, paint finishing from tonight. And we're going to get into this tomorrow. We were supposed to do it earlier today. Some of you asked, I made a community post about what you would like to see from this channel. A lot of people requested Leo and Rob do a video breakdown. So I messaged Leo and I was like, let's do it. Right. So that's one way that I think hopefully Pensari Basketball is listening to you guys. Number two, I made an Instagram post about the neuroscience in basketball because I wanted to talk about how an athlete's brain works. I wanted to talk about high pressure situations. I just want to quickly tease, like, I just want to express to you guys some of the questions that I have for Catherine, and hopefully you can kind of get an idea of where this is going, just to tease at it. Obviously, she'll be able to refine these questions because she's 100 times smarter than me about this stuff, but she'll be able to be like, okay, well, this question is kind of stupid and this question isn't. So number one was neuropriming in athletes. So example of the Halo headphones, how does neuropriming when working on repetitive muscle movement and memory improve performance? So those of you who don't know, like neuropriming, like just Google Halo headphones. This is not a promo for Halo headphones. It just got bought out, but it's real. And Tim Hardaway Jr. is like one of the spokesmen for that. So number two was basketball is all about muscle memory. So deprogramming bad techniques, implementing better ones. How does someone who has practiced a shot a million times one way best break the habit of shooting the wrong way? So like if you want to adjust your release, or you want to tuck in your elbow a little bit more and you have like a tendency to flare it out. Number three, hypothetical, what disadvantages would be present for an athlete picking up basketball at the age of 17 versus basketball at the age of 7? And how might these disadvantages play out, as these respective athletes turn 27? So that's something I wanted to understand about just brain formation, because there's, widespread understanding within the neuroscience community that brains are very different prior to the age of 26, 27 than they are after. Number four, countless NBA players were eligible for Division I scholarships in other sports. Can you think of the benefits of two sports versus being a one sport athlete? Number five, the brain under high stress situations. It's clear from 60 years of data that some players routinely perform better in elevated stakes situations. Some maintain their averages, jumping up levels. So I just wanted to understand what's different, like what's going on in the brain of an athlete in high stress situations, who's good at those situations versus bad. Number six was players have spoken extensively about the sensation of slow motions, flow state, whatever. I wanted to understand that a little bit better. Number eight was next play mentality. I think this is something really that Scottie Barnes could work on a lot. Sometimes you'll see him complain about a call and he's still complaining about it like 4 plays later, and it starts to sort of affect his game. So I'm kind of curious like how a player can get out of that. I don't know if that's a psychology question or a neuroscience question, but I'm very interested in it. Number 9 is some players have seemingly innate ability to understand the other 9 players on the course. It's all about vision, so it's understanding that. And number 10 was follow up on number 9. One thing I've heard, at least with Jokic, is that he was extremely experimental in his play style as a kid. His coaches hated it, but it morphed him into a 2-time MVP. Does relentless openness to making mistakes as a young kid, like how does that impact your end of performance? And then 11 which was how might one's intelligence in general make them better or worse at sports. So I just wanted to understand the relationship between high IQ in, you know, in a general sense versus high IQ in sports. So those are sort of the questions and like stuff that I would like to dig into. If you have some other questions that you would like to, you know, sort of learn about in the neuroscience thing, I'm sure I'll make a community post before we make it so that we can get those questions answered by Catherine as well. She's really smart. And if she's watching this, hey, Kat, what's up? Finally, I do want to just quickly say that the video with Scottie's trainer has just eclipsed 5,000 views. I think today we got 5,000 views. Keep at it, guys. Like it's going strong. It's building slowly. We're getting there. Let's just keep going. Let's keep sharing it. I mean, I really do want to get this video to 10,000 views. It's sort of a mission of mine. I just want it to get out there. So, you know, keep sharing it. I'm going to keep pushing it. I'm not going to promote it, but I'm going to tell everyone about it, and hopefully you can watch it. It's not something that has a time expiration on it. I think you could watch it a month from now and probably still learn just as much from it. So I hope it's a video that'll continue to gain viewership. There are quite a few videos like that on this channel that have, you know, maybe been released on a Tuesday and they're still going strong like 8 days later, 9 days later, 10 days later. So I know that videos sometimes take on that. And then there are obviously some videos that you release on a Tuesday and by Wednesday they're dead. And this is probably one of those videos today. But yeah, anyways, this has been a really fun chat. We're going to keep this under 2 hours. Sorry. Do me a solid, pull up the NBA standings and tell me you would trade Fred VanVleet for point guard straight up. I want to know where he ranks in your eyes. That's an interesting exercise, honestly. Given his age, contract, relative, you know, weaknesses and strengths, I would say he's a slightly below average starting point guard in the NBA. We'll probably do a cool. Seems like there's who's Skip? Sorry, I'm just like reading the comments because I wasn't really paying attention to them earlier. Oh, I see. Thank you. I've heard that comment before. It's highly offensive and highly inaccurate, but you're definitely entitled to your opinion. No, I did not talk about the play before overtime. Okay, cool. Anyway, if you haven't hit subscribe, please hit subscribe, please hit like, and all that good stuff. The video with Leo will definitely happen tomorrow, I believe, or later tonight. We were planning later tonight or tomorrow. I don't think it's going to be tonight, so I think it's going to be tomorrow. So hopefully that'll be a fun one, and we can just, you know, go through the advanced analytics for Scottie. We can compare him to, you know, players in his draft class and before his draft class. We were looking at comparables: Cade, Scottie, Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, LaMelo Ball, guys like this, you know, guys who are all 21, and obviously with LaMelo and Anthony Edwards both still being 21, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Those guys are really advanced, but I think Scottie stacks up really, really well given his relative lack of skill development to this point in his career. I think he's just done really, really well I think he's just getting by a lot on just natural gifts, and I think that it'll continue to evolve. But it's funny when I look at him compared to all those players, and I think to myself, like, he's just further behind than a lot of those players in terms of like his skills package. And so it's really kind of crazy to understand, like, with his drive, with his competitive motor, with his, you know, understanding of angles and intelligence, how much further he can get than those guys given where he is right now. Because LaMelo Ball is like full package right now. Like Anthony Edwards, full package. I'm not saying these guys aren't going to get way better. They definitely could get way better, but I'm saying like they're full and very complete offensive players right now. There aren't like glaring weaknesses like, you know, in their games. There's not like their handle is extremely expanded. They could be alpha scorers. They can put up 40 points anytime they want. And they're just like marginally better than Scottie, who really doesn't have a lot of that at all right now. So it's a very interesting deep dive that we're going to do tomorrow. We'll look at all the B-ball index, ratings. We'll look at how Scottie's improved. We'll do the film breakdown, all that good stuff. Alrighty, guys. Cheers. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to watch the video if you haven't already, and definitely keep tuned in for that live tomorrow. Someone says cover my Celtics. Sure, I'll cover them. They're really good. I like them. That's great. Yeah, Leo is super happy right now. He was ready to trade half the team just a week ago for OG Anunoby, but I think he'll be good. All right, take care, guys, and yeah. Remember to do something of service today. I don't want to keep harping on this thing, but yeah. All right, take care. See you guys.